bedroom with a boy I barely knew. He locked the door and walked towards me. There was no other way out. I was trapped. I realized that my cell phone was in my bag downstairs and that no one knew where I was, or even who I was with. I was in big, big trouble. It wasn't like me to get into situations like this. I have always been so sensible, but the events of the weeks leading up to this moment had led to me making a bad decision. I'm Amelia, and I'm 14 years old. I live with my older sister Leela and our mom and dad. My life was pretty normal until one odd day my mom started acting in a really strange way. It began with one evening when she sat me down and had a talk with me about responsibility and how I shouldn't let any boy touch my body. I told her there was no way that I would. I didn't even like boys. And besides, I've never even been in a relationship. She told me she believed me, but I had to accept a new rule in the house. She wanted me to take regular pregnancy tests. What a weird thing to ask. I laughed at first. I knew I wasn't pregnant as it wasn't possible, but my mom seemed like she didn't believe me. In the end, arguing with her seemed hopeless, so I went to the bathroom and took the test. I thought if it reassured my mom, then I might as well do it. The test was negative, of course. My mom looked so relieved, which was kind of insulting. She could have just trusted me when I told her, but things didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, though, Mom started to act weirder. I was forced to start taking a pregnancy test once a week. On top of that, I had to tell her who I was hanging out with every time I go out, and she would even ask me to put them on the phone to verify. Soon, she wouldn't let me go around friends' houses if they lived with brothers or even if they had dads. Mom would insist I came home instead and stayed by myself in my room and studied. Then, she insisted on me taking another pregnancy test, then another, then another. Soon, I was having to do them every day. I couldn't believe it. My mom had gone from being the closest mom ever to a control freak. One day, I came home and Mom had some glass tubes and packets on the table. They were the equipment for a drug test. She announced that she wanted me to take a drug test as well to make sure that I wasn't taking anything. She said that I would have to do them at random times, whenever she asked. Couldn't believe it. I would never try drugs. I told her no at first, but she just moaned at me about how she knew best and how she just wanted to protect me. In the end, I gave up fighting and took the test. But I felt so depressed. Even my body wasn't my own. Now, you might not believe it, but it actually got even worse than this. Soon after, my mom forbade me from seeing any friends after school. Instead, Dad would be picking me up every day from school and driving me home. I was so miserable. On top of that, he was going to drop me off every morning. I wasn't even trusted to walk myself to school. As I wasn't allowed to go out, I started losing more and more friends. At lunch and breaks, I felt so isolated. It felt like no one wanted to talk to me anymore. When I tried to join in conversations, people would talk about what happened out of school or what films they had seen, or other things that I couldn't join in with as I wasn't allowed to have a life. And the worst thing about it was that I didn't even know why I was being treated like this. My evenings were so depressing too. I never had anyone to talk to. My parents even took away my phone every night when I got home from school. They told me it was a distraction I didn't need, and that I should use my evenings to concentrate on my homework. Until one day, I noticed something very weird. I was coming back from school sooner than usual, and when I entered the house, Mom called me and told me to check if she had turned off the oven. I didn't really pay attention to it at first, but when she came home, she asked me why I finished school early. How did she know? I started suspecting that my parents were actually tracking me. The next day, I decided to test out my theory and took a different path home, and my suspicions were confirmed. My phone started buzzing with messages asking me where I was. But how were they tracking me? The next day, I asked Blake, a guy I know from school, if he had any idea how my parents could track me. Blake asked me to hand him my phone. He checked it, and he looked at me with a smirk. "You got a tracking GPS hidden app on your phone." "Oh my God," I freaked out. "Well, delete it," I told Blake, but Blake wouldn't. He started asking me all sorts of questions about the reason my parents were acting like this. I felt like I could tell him what was happening because he was smart and funny, and kinda cute too. He was so different from any other boy at my school. I confessed to Blake about my crazy parents, and he found it funny. He couldn't believe that I put up with them. He told me that I shouldn't delete the app, and that I should use this app for my advantage. He said that all I'd have to do was turn off my phone when I leave school, and it will get them to believe I'm still there. He then convinced me that I needed to go and have fun, whether they allowed me to or not. He messaged me an hour later and told me to meet him outside school. He wouldn't tell me why, but I was excited. I ran outside and found Blake. He told me that we were going to cut school that day. I was shocked. I had never skipped school before, but he told me that I needed to live a little and go for it. I remembered the advice he gave me, and I turned off my phone. He grabbed my hand and we ran off the school grounds. Holding his hand made me feel nervous and excited. I mostly got excited because I felt like I was finally breaking free from my parents and crazy mother. But to tell you the truth, I wasn't sure about how I felt towards Blake. He took me back to his house. His parents were out, so we had the place to ourselves. He called up the school and pretended to be my dad and called in sick for me. Then, he got me to call and pretend that I was his mom. I felt exhilarated. I had never been with anyone who made me feel so free. We went up to his room and played computer games. It was weird, sitting on his bed next to him. I had never been alone with a boy before, but he was so relaxed. And soon, I was too. Then, when we stopped playing games, he leaned over and kissed me. I had never been kissed before, and it was so wonderful. But then, he didn't want to stop. He wanted to take things further. I suggested we go downstairs and watch TV, but he said he wanted to stay here. He got up and locked the door to his room. He leaned in towards me again. I tried to push him away from me, but he kept telling me how pretty I was and how much he liked kissing me. I started to panic. I was all by myself with a boy I barely knew, and no one even knew I was with him and where I was. Quickly, my hand reached my pocket where my phone was, and I turned it on, hoping that my parents would come to my rescue. Then, something happened that shocked me. I heard someone banging and shouting at the front door. I recognized the voice. It was my dad. He shouted that he knew I was inside and demanded that I come to the front door right away. Blake jumped away from me, and he looked really scared. I snatched the key, unlocked the door, ran out of the room and down the stairs. I grabbed my bag and ran out the front door straight into my dad's arms. He looked really angry for a second. Then, when he saw that I was upset, he hugged me back. We went and sat in his car, and I told him everything that had happened. Then he got angry again. He told me that I shouldn't have skipped school in the first place. He said that I put myself in a dangerous position as no one knew where I was. I told him that it was him and Mom's fault. If they hadn't been so controlling, that I would never have skipped school. I just felt like my whole life was so controlled that I had to sneak around to do anything fun. I said that I didn't even want a serious boyfriend yet. I knew I was too young. He nodded and looked sad. After the incident, my dad admitted that my mom was so worried about me that she had made him put a secret app on my phone to track my location so that they could keep an eye on me at all times. When he saw that I wasn't at school, he knew he had to find me. That night, I sat down with Mom and Dad. I told them that I knew about the secret app, and that's why I had acted out. I apologized and told them that I couldn't keep living like this. I was going to start hanging out with my friends again after school. I said it was unfair for me to not have a social life just because they were worried. I told them that I would not take any more pregnancy tests either. My mom suddenly teared up. I didn't understand what I did to make her cry. My father gave her a hug, and he told me there was something I should know. A while ago, we found out that your sister Leela is pregnant. Leela? I couldn't believe it. She's only 16, my dad continued. Leela had been feeling unwell for a few days and kept complaining that she felt sick. Your mom thought something was wrong and started paying extra attention to her. Then, she found a positive pregnancy test in the bin in the bathroom and sat us down and shouted at us until Leela admitted that it was hers. I couldn't believe that my sister had been so reckless to get pregnant, but things started to finally make sense. I guess my mother had a good explanation for her crazy behavior. My parents admitted that they freaked out because they felt like they didn't do a good job protecting us and that they were trying out a new method. I leaned closer to her and gave her a hug. I promised her that I won't repeat my sister's mistake and that when I was much older and had a boyfriend, then I would make sure that we only had safe sex. Mom was really quiet for ages, but then she apologized for not trusting me more. She promised me she would never force me to take another pregnancy test again. Have your parents ever done anything as weird as make you take a pregnancy test every single day? Let me know the strangest thing they have done in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to hear more stories like this.